Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Backyard Sportscenter Podcast. I am your host, Natetastic Today is a special episode since we have for a guest today the reigning champion of the rBBL, rPub / Emery. Welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Nate, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and to just kind of like your history of what happened last season and talk about the current happenings of the rBBL.
Yeah, sure. So, in season eight, it was my first full season, and I did fill in for Jalen's team midway through season seven. But season eight was where it got a little more serious. I know I drafted my own team, and keeping in line with tradition, I took over the Baltimore Bombers again. And it was a pretty wild draft. I made a lot of trades, and people had some interesting comments to say to me. They thought that I was kind of going a little too top heavy with multiple round twos, and I wound up getting straddled with two late round eights back to back. But it actually wound up I got a lot of lucky breaks. I took Courtney Valentino in round one, and I got my catcher of choice, Maynard McElroy, in round two. And what was really nice was Davey Marion fell, I believe, I think I drafted him at like 42, 42nd pick, I want to say. But he fell for whatever reason. And then I got who turned out to be my favorite player among the backyard kids, Sally Dobbs, who was just kind of lingering around in the fourth round. Vic Souffle, who both actually wound up being very good for me. Vic was a really good AI shortstop, and Perry was good for some extra power at the plate. I played on Dubois, which is actually one of my favorite fields in the game. And the again, I just a lot of good fortune with the draft because the late round eights wound up being Gary Allen and Arlene Perez, who Arlene wound up being a really good right fielder for me. And then I realized that I needed some more pitching depth. So because I had a very late round nine, I wound up making a trade with ASNAP for Melissa Waters, who was a Tim Hudson clone, who isn't, necessarily the greatest player, but wound up filling out the team quite well. And yeah, it worked out. I wound up going 12-2. And the playoffs were quite difficult. I played against your Braves, and although the scores were a little bit lopsided, it was still a tough team.
A little bit,
Well,
more like a lot of it.
I mean, you played pretty well, and you went from 4-10, 10-4, but you know, it was a good series. And then I played against a very hard Seattle Fishes, coached by Chris Blanco, who were a very speedy team with a much better defense than mine. But that wound up going three games and got a clutch victory at the end. And then, the World Series was against, my team, which wound up being, I think other than the Melonheads, wound up being, the powerhouse offense of the league versus, the league's, most fearsome defense in the Minnesota Mariners by ASNAP. And we had three really close games, and it was crazy just having a really kind of difficult draft situation, basically my technical rookie year, and just going from zero to champ. So it was pretty wild, and I was felt like I was very lucky, but I played well enough, and got the gold.
You definitely had some breaks in the draft for sure, but I think a lot of it was just how you played and you knew how to play with that team and you figured it out really fast.
Yeah, it just, having a core of Courtney, who is basically just a very multi-use player, Maynard for his arm and speed, Davey for just, again, all around good, and Sally, and when you throw in Gary and Perry for extra power, and Melissa being able to use power-ups because she was my round nine, it just everything just worked out. And yeah, I did. Well, I did figure out that team and, a good lineup composition. It was a wild season, and I felt very fortunate to have beaten some really good teams, including, a very stacked defensive team in the Mariners during the World Series.
Yeah, anytime that Ace drafts a team, you know they're going to be good defensively, and that team was one of the best that I've seen. Just when I was playing just scrimmages against them, and I was like, thank goodness I'm in the other league and don't want to play them.
Yeah, and it I think the first time I scrimmaged against them, I scored like 2 runs, and I was terrified of that team. Like, man, I know that they're in the other league, but feel bad for any poor soul that had to go against him. And to his credit, I think he went 13-1, I want to say, that season. So give you an idea of how good that defense was.
Yeah, I remember the one loss was to JY because that was the whole, you know, making all the jokes about J. Why did you are you doing such and such in the Discord?
Yeah, it was certainly a redemption game for JY, although the jokes haven't ceased. So sorry, JY. It's not going to happen anytime soon either.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this community is just the kind of the inside jokes that come about from the different rivalries and players and games that we have been going on.
Indeed. And honestly, just getting to know all you guys on a personal level and having a lot of good talks and just, joking around, like you said, you're not going to find many online communities that stack up to this one. Just the fact that we all get to play a game that, kind of was our defining thing, the defining thing of our childhoods growing up. And now, now we know more about it now than we did as kids. It's a good time for sure.
Yeah, we definitely know probably more about this game than anyone except the people that actually developed the game.
Basically, yeah. That's why it's always makes me laugh when I occasionally see, people doing backyard baseball videos and they're just using all the backyard kids still. It's like, yeah, you're missing out because these generics are, they're pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that the average person doesn't know, but hopefully they'll find us somewhere on the internet and they'll come to the dark side of the generics.
Yeah, because, I used to be one of those people, like I think a lot of us, where, Pablo was the best and, there was nobody better. And knowing what we know now, he's probably not even in the top 10. So,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting things we have found out about this game, including all the stats and the hidden stats and different things with mechanics that are hidden inside the code that you wouldn't know about unless you actually dug in deep into it, which has really been interesting to find out through various people digging into it, especially Visory.
yes, yeah, this has been an unsung hero in this community for all the work that they do. And we talk a lot about player strategy and just, the good players, the bad players, and how to utilize, each of them as best you can. So it's a lot of work goes into this, and I think that it just makes us all appreciate the game that much more.
Definitely, definitely. I think now is a good time to head into what happened in week 10 of the rBBL season. If you do not have your S9 spreadsheet pulled up, I would recommend pulling it up along with us so that you can follow along as we discuss some of the games that have happened in week 10. So I'm going to start going from left to right, starting with the American League. The Royals of Visery defeated the Hornets that are now coached by Slim 19-6. The Royals continued on their offensive outburst, just continuing to hit massive scores and hit numerous homers. 7 home runs they hit today. Hit 4 home runs and 10 RBIs by Tanya Let's Go, and Joan May added another 2 home runs and 5 RBIs as well. Arlene Perez, which she had last season, hit 2 doubles and had 2 RBIs. So that was the big storyline of this game, was Tanya Let's Go.
Yeah, and I think the result really doesn't surprise anyone at this point, but this is definitely on pace to break some offensive records in this league, team and just individual player too. So, Lesko and May have been a very potent 1-2 punch, and having Arlene as his ninth round pick plus power ups is, she's really good for round 9 in my opinion. So again, I'm not surprised by this at all. Hornets have been struggling even with a good coach like Schlim. That was not a favorable matchup for him. So another dominating win by the best offensive team in the league.
Yep, the Royals continue to pile on the runs and pile on the wins. 9-1 so far this season, and the Hornets fall to 2-8. The next game, which literally just happened right before recording this, which was for the match of the week, the Orioles and the Rangers. Orioles squeak by the Rangers. Mav hit a couple home runs that I noticed. One from Mark McGuire, Jane Davis, and Uma Morris. I'm not entirely certain if there was more home runs that he scored or hit. Struggled a little bit on defense, adding that he doesn't really enjoy playing the defensive side of the game. Rangers continue to have a hard time scoring on grass fields, especially their home field of Steel. You can definitely tell just by looking at their scores what kind of field they played on, because anytime they're seems to be playing on like a grass field, they have like 10 runs or less, or if they're playing on a cement field or a bouncy field, they're scoring, like 20 plus.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was certainly a close game. I pretty much, agree with everything you said there about, I think the composition of T-Boz's team relative to where he plays is not ideal. People like Tatiana or, even the Weber, or not Webers, but the Stephanie clones are not the absolute best for Steel. I think, with Steel builds, you kind of want to sacrifice a little speed and just go for more bats. So it kind of explains the low scoring games. And plus, Steel is not extremely bouncy either. So even grounders can sometimes be, not as efficient or effective rather as other parks. So it was a nice win for Mav. I think he really needed this one because had he lost to T-Boz, playoff situation would have been a lot worse for him because he did lose to T-Boz earlier this season, I believe week 1 by a lot. So nice win for Mav, some nice home runs, and certainly could have been more, but it was nice to see his power bats come through and even get a little break from McGuire on the AI side for getting a home run there too.
Yeah, now both of these teams are tied at 6-4, and they're 1-1 on the season series. So you never know. This might turn out to be a tiebreaker game for the last wild card spot in the American League.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here on out. I'm kind of favoring Mav a little bit at this point. I think despite sometimes the unpredictable scoring, he's got a very nice squad. There's not a ton of weaknesses on it, and other than not being able to use power-ups, it's a good team.
I did not know that he did not have a ninth rounder. Who did he trade with?
I know he drafted Artie Pimbleton, who was the Maria clone, and then he traded, I want to say it was Titanium for Cindy.
Oh, yeah, I think so. That was part of the Giants' massive overhaul of their roster.
Yes. And so but again, despite that, I mean, I lost to this team this season, so I think he's on the up and up, but that's gonna be a real dogfight these last 4 weeks for sure for whoever wins the title.
Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that both of these teams end up with the same record, which would be really interesting for the wild card.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's gonna really come down to the wire, and it's just gonna be about maybe who wants it more and who can just play you know just a little better when it matters.
So if you're a fan of tiebreakers, this might be the thing for you. I really hope that Mav makes the playoffs, honestly. It's been so long and he's such a good player, evidenced by the fact that he always like wins like every single side season and it just like destroys everybody. But when it comes to the rBBL seasons, for whatever reason, I don't know what the deal is, but it just goes away. Except for random game, he'll get like put up a 40 or a 50 or something. It's like, what the heck? Where did this come from? And the next week he scores three.
Yep, that's Mav for you, and he would tell you the same thing. But I certainly agree. Mav was very generous during the draft too, with trading with people, and for somebody that's been around for so long and hasn't made the playoffs once, you kind of want to see him in there. But T-Boz is also somebody that's gotten a lot better in even just the last couple seasons. So, and Mav is one of those people that tends to draft a lot of different players each season. So, who knows what that'll come down to, as far as like, if that'll affect anything. But I have talked to Mav in recent weeks. And, I know that he has a batting order that he's going with that he's pretty comfortable with. So we'll see what that can do.
Yeah, we'll just keep our eye on the Orioles for and the Rangers for the rest of the season. Moving on to the next game, the Devil Rays and the Angels. The Devil Rays won this one with a score of plus 12 to minus 4. Angels got extremely unlucky playing on the extra hard mode that people have mentioned as a joke. Gary Allen did hit a home run, so if you are a Angels fan or a Gary Allen fan, that's your bright spot for this in this game. The Devil Rays had a couple players that did pretty well. Hellerman surprisingly hit a home run and had 3 RBIs. Karen Donato also had a home run and 4 RBIs. Lubel, the Walker clone, had 2 doubles and 3 RBIs. So a pretty solid average Jibbo game for you.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate for the Angels to lose to the AI. That's always absolutely brutal. It just goes to show you what kind of defense that Ace not built, especially for a field as wild as dirt yards, where the bounces are just they seemingly happen almost every hit. So that defense can be extremely scary when it wants to be, and it's a tough loss for the Angels, who were coming off a pretty good win, I believe, against the Pirates the week prior. It's definitely a damper, but I think in this instance the better team won.
Yeah, I definitely think that the better team won, but still feel bad for anytime anyone loses to the AI and gets stuck on extra hard mode.
Yeah, that's no fun.
But at least Gary had a home run, so wasn't all a waste.
Yeah, Gary Bobby's been doing a great job with Gary Allen this season, and I think my hope is that he hits more home runs with him this season than I did using him last season. I think he's getting pretty close, so should be interesting.
Yeah, I know he's been hitting a lot. I know on one of the other previous episodes where I had Bobby on, went over that Gary Allen is doing as well or better offensively than Conseco, which is really good considering the gap in draft stock where you'd take them.
Yeah, and I think other than not being able to play defense at all, I mean, Gary actually has his batting and contact grading are both pretty good. Whereas like Jose's, I think his context is only like a 10. So, it's a little easier to put the ball in play with Gary, even if you're swinging line drive. So, kudos to Bobby for doing so well with him.
Gary and Joella are really fun to play with, so I like both of them.
Yes, very good bats to have.
The Devil Rays are now 7-3, just trying to stay in the division race a game behind you, and the Angels now fall to 4-6. Next game up was our game that we played against each other. Really close game, almost pulled off the upset, but had a couple chances that to score those extra couple runs, and then end up giving up that home run by Sally when I was debating trying to give her the intentional walk, and I should have done it. And I'm like, no, my ego got in the way. And then she had a 2-run home run, and I almost had a chance to redeem myself anyway, but then Cheryl struck out, and that was that. I did hit 4 home runs, one by Cheryl, one by Rachel, one by Mo, and another by Tracy Hoban.
Yeah, it was a really wild game. To be fair, I think that for me at least, the Pete Wheeler birthday boost really helped me out. He was up to a 10 batting. And yeah, and he hit a couple home runs, including and just missing one, which and it was a swing where I probably should have went power, but I went line drive and he wound up flying out to Fay. But 2 home runs by Pete. Mikey hit 2 home runs, and honestly, every at bat by Mikey during the game, it came really close to being a home run to right field. So could have easily been four. He played really well. Sally hit 2 home runs. I think Veronica hit one and had 5 RBIs. Pamela was 4 for 4, scored a bunch of runs, and Dominic benefited from a couple power ups and wound up getting 6 RBIs on the day. Your AI did turn a couple double plays on me though, and one of them led to a crazy bunt that wound up going into right field after it almost stopped by Pete's feet at third. And then it just flew up in the air and went into right. So that was fun. I
Come on, AI. Why couldn't you have done like 5 more of those?
it was a crazy game on my side too. And like I mentioned, if I didn't have Pete with the birthday boost, I don't know if I would have scored as many runs. It was I think one thing that hurt your team though was when Cheryl came in to pitch and Ramona Bennett went to catch her. So I stole a bunch of bases, but it wound up being a really close game, and I think it's just the fact that you and I both put up so many runs should kind of be a bit of a, I guess a warning sign to other coaches. So good game, but I definitely think the Pete birthday boost was what saved the day for me, and it seemed like Sally also saved the day for your game.
Yeah, I did not abuse Dominic going to catcher at all. So I think that if I had to redo it, I would have been a little bit more patient and tried to get some steals, which I still put up a decent score even without even I'm trying to abuse that. If I would have been a little bit more patient, who knows what would have happened? Would have been thinking a little bit more in depth instead of just reactionary.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games that could have gone either way. And I wasn't watching your stream, but I was talking to Visery about it, and they had told me that it was pretty close. And I asked him what the score was, and he told me that, oh, just I'll get back to you after this Cheryl at bat. And then I'm like, oh, so I got super lucky. My defense is highly exploitable at times, and it's been shown a few times this season already. It was a squeaker, and although you lost, I still think your performance was pretty good.
Definitely was better than my performance against your team last season in the playoffs.
Yeah, those boosts and nerfs didn't help your cause either, unfortunately, in first game. But it was a good battle.
Yeah, it definitely was a good game. Maybe you'll meet again in the playoffs. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, looking forward to it.
Next game was either a really good game or a really bad game, depending on who you talk to. JY and the Reds almost losing to the Bombers AI. Sandy almost took another victim. The JY memes almost got out for a little bit there, but he does end up pulling it out, got the +1, beat the AI, and survives to fight another day.
Yeah, this was a scary one. It was midway through the game, and JY was down a run thanks to the AI getting a power up. Fortunately, they didn't use it multiple times because who knows what that would have led to. Bombers defense, man, there was a hit. I can't recall who it was. I don't know if it was Joella. She hit a booming shot to left, and Reese was playing left field for the Bombers, and he was just running into the log. So we're figuring that this is just going to be a home run off the log as soon as it bounces, but literally went right into his glove.
Oh, wow.
There were some really wild. Yeah, it was really unlucky. Dante made a catch at short where he just laid out for it on a sharp hit liner. It was just like, man, how Gretchen also did somewhat well in right field despite having like no arm whatsoever. It was just a lot of bad luck, but I was happy that JY got the win because that might have that might have spoiled the Reds season entirely had the Bombers and Guy Smiley's interesting little team got the win there. So good for JY though. The Reds, aka the Teals, like Schlim calls them, needed to get that win. And one +1 is better than -1.
Yeah, no one would have thought that the Bombers defense would have been so formidable. There's been a lot of like low scoring games, and you think that you're gonna, oh, I'm gonna score like 30 runs against them, and then it's like, how did I score three?
Yeah, because I know that Mello had a hard time against them earlier this season. That team is deceptively good at Sandy. It just he had JY had some really bad luck too. The power bats were not showing up. It just got very dicey at the end, but definitely happy for him that he got the win. Yeah, the Bombers on Sandy are they're not a horrible team, to say the least, defensively speaking.
And the last game of the week in the American League, we are still waiting for the result of it. Rockies and Pirates. I did see Question Monkey's game, and he played well, but without trying to say too many spoilers or whatever, definitely put up a decent score. I'll say that.
Yeah, and again, not to say much either, but I was very impressed with Question Monkey's performance. Lots of good hits. Some of them may or may not have left the yard, but I think that was probably one of his best games that he's ever done on rBBL history. So good for him.
Yeah, for sure. Good game by the Pirates. That is the American League games for week 10. Now moving on to the National League, we got the Cardinals with a +7 against the Melonheads +9. Melonheads using a superior fifth inning to get over the hump, just barely squeaking by the Cardinals by 2 runs. If it wasn't for that fifth inning, this would have been another really low scoring game for Oops and the Melonheads, but thankfully he got that fifth inning and was able to pull out the win.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to see Oops's game. I joined in like right at the very end, but from what he told me, that Maria was kind of like the hero and hit a grand slam, and that's basically where all the magic happened was the fifth inning. If I recall correctly, too, Nate, the from what I heard is that Jerry going to first base was what really hurt Wiz's team. And that seems to be a common theme from everything that I've heard from just watching games when I can. And from what I've heard, is just when Jerry goes to first base, things start getting really bad. And I think that the Cardinals let this one slip away from them, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Cardinals have been struggling a little bit. They've had some really good games in the first half, but they've had put up some stinkers as well. They've kind of been the Mav of the National League, if you want to you kind of use that analogy, because they scored 29 and 19 this season, but then they've also had games of 2 and 4 and 5, so you never know what you're going to get with the Cardinals. They did hit a couple home runs, so Goodfellow and Sosa combined for 3 home runs. So all their offense pretty much has been home runs. I think that's the consistent factor is that if they're not hitting home runs, they're not scoring that much. So also having a slow field at Casa, it's not the best field unless you have some speedsters or power bats.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at Wiz's team for a while, but I think it's actually a relatively slower team in general too. Besides, I think Ichiro and like a couple others. So I think that's definitely a game where Wizard could have won. But props to Oops for just persevering and getting kind of a dramatic late inning comeback. So that I think his playoff chances are still kind of in the balance, but it certainly makes the standings more interesting on the NL side.
Yeah, it does. The Cardinals are now 5-5. Melonheads are 4-6. That division is getting tight, except for, I mean, with the exception of the Monsters that are still in first place. But the Twins, Cardinals, and Melonheads are all kind of lumped together. So anything could happen the last 4 weeks of the season as far as those three teams.
Yeah, certainly it's going to be a very interesting playoff race.
The next game we have on the list was the Monsters that just talked about leading the NL West. Monsters scored a +7 and the Twins scored a +4. I thought this game was going to be a lot more high scoring than it actually was, considering that it was at Steel, and especially the Twins have a lot of good power bats for Steel. So only scoring 4 runs is kind of a shock to me.
Yeah, I was watching this stream and I know Toast was not happy. Just couldn't get a lot going. It was very unfortunate too because I think going into this matchup, despite the Monsters' dominance on the year, Toast built an amazing team for Steel. Basically, almost all his kids are power bats, and even though Uria's defense is really good, you can't defend against nukes and the short porch and center field. I think he could have taken way more advantage of. And I don't think Uria's team is necessarily the best for Steel outside of like Davey and I guess you could say maybe like Tony Delvecchio, but he didn't have a lot of power bats. So I was thinking that Uria might put up around 8 to 10 runs, and Toast would put up a good 12, 15, and it just didn't happen. So it makes you wonder if the streaming curse kind of got to him a little bit too. I have talked with Toast about that, and he might not stream certain games going forward, but I still am a believer in the Twins. And despite the setback, I think that Toast is going to get some more wins with that team and finish strong.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk in the Discord about the stream bonus or a streaming bonus for people because it seems like that there it's like this kind of like bug or whatever where you stream and then you don't score as many points as you do when you're not streaming because of the pressure or whatever. So looks like the streaming curse got toast this time.
Yeah, definitely, because I think this is one of those games, um, I'm pretty sure that Uriah gave up 3 runs to Toast's AI, so it just goes to show you that I kind of feel like this one was Toast's game to lose, and unfortunately it did happen. But Monsters get yet another close one.
Yeah, for sure. Twins are not out of it. Believe they are tied for the wild card at this point, still, even with that loss.
Yeah, 6-4.
Yeah, they're tied right now at 6-4 for the wild card. So even though they did lose, it's not the worst thing in the world. They're still in a position to make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens moving forward with them. But possibly the like recording and restreaming it might benefit them. Who knows? Sometimes it benefits people, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, could certainly be a good strategy going forward. And I think even Pepsi Boy has started to do that too with just playing the game ahead of time and then posting it on here. So we'll see what goes on.
Well, speaking about recording and restreaming their games, the Crazy Yankees and Crazy Eights put up a 35 spot on the Brewers. What about that game?
Yeah, I watched it. It was just a lot of good hits. Chico, I think, had a few home runs. I know Crazy's been having a hard time lately. Had a brutal game against the Cardinals recently, so it was nice to see him get a dominating victory like this against another struggling team. Definitely one he needed to win. The Brewers' defense is pretty bad overall, and that's no insult to SB because I know he went with a power bat approach for TCA, which makes perfect sense. But on Dubois, Crazy had the better team, had a lot more speed, and just a lot of timely hitting, and kind of just really wrecking that defense, the AI defense overall. So a much needed win, and it's always good to just shred your opponent at home.
Yeah, for sure. Chico hit 3 more home runs. Chico having seasons that is on par with Aaron Judge hitting his 60 plus home runs and Albert Pujols hitting his 700th home run. It's right up there with those two accomplishments. Depending on who you ask, it might even be the premier accomplishment of this season.
Yeah, I mean, Chico getting 100 career home runs honestly is pretty cool, and I know that's Crazy is very much a fan of Chico since I've started to get to know him. So it's fitting that he did it. He was the one that got him over the 100 mark.
Yeah, for sure. Always is really nice when like you get to accomplish this historic thing with your one of your favorite players. I hope that at some point I will have be able to hit the 100th home run by either Rachel or Peggy at some point. That'd be amazing.
Well, I mean, you hit 4 with Rachel this season, and you did it live too, which is just absolutely amazing. So yeah, certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many I've had, but I know I've hit quite a few. Between last season, I had 19 with Peggy, and I think this season, I'm just gonna pull it up real quick. It looks like I have 14 so far. So yeah, about the same. So
Yeah, so you're definitely on pace for to even hit 20.
Yeah, I hit 19. I just missed 20. So I got four more games to hit six home runs. So, and there's not any stadiums that's not homerable for Rachel. So it's not going to TCA or Sandy or something like that. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next game that we have is the Fishes of El Cris Blanco and the Wombats of Marco, or M as he is referred to in the Discord. Fishes put up a one of their highest scores of the season, if not their highest score that they've gotten this season, of 15. Wombats continue to struggle to score at Steel Stadium, which is kind of boggling. I know I was talking about this with Bobby in episode 2, I believe, about the Wombats roster, and they have a good roster. I don't understand why it's not leading to points and runs.
Yeah, and I actually do recall that conversation you two were having, but honestly, I kind of don't find it all that surprising that Marco was struggling to score a lot of runs on steel with his team. When you look at that roster, it's mostly a bunch of line drive and slap hitters who are not necessarily good or you know go-to bats for home runs. His biggest power bats are Keisha and Jorge, who, yeah, they can hit home runs, but it's not like a kid like Zenon or, Fabian, somebody that can just blast it out at any time. Those are not auto home run hitters. And the fact that those are the only big power bats he has, if they're not really doing much, then the run production is going to dip because, the Webbers boosted are nice, but they're not reliable home run hitters. He's got Timmy Unger, who again, upper 60s power. McCattery's in the 60s. Yeah, I, I think that Marco would have benefited tremendously if he was playing on like a concrete park this season. Then I think this team looks even better. But with Steele, you have to go power. I think that's why he's struggling so much this year. I don't think that team is good for Steele, and there's not enough power bats to go around.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have a little bit more power, but if you just look at the roster, has a lot of good players on it.
Good players, but again, a lot of good line drive hitters. So, um,
Yeah, but even on the road, he's not scoring that many runs either. So
yeah, it's been a frustrating year for Marco, and it's kind of unfortunate because he came super close to making the playoffs last season. So, I think that I think that he's going to definitely revamp his drafting strategy in season 10, and we'll see if our Aussie friend can get some more wins.
yeah, at some point Marco's gonna make the playoffs. I feel it. And then could you just imagine if Marco wins like season 10 or season 11, just how much crap he's gonna talk about?
Yeah, Marco winning the World Series, and Marco, I hope you do listen to this one day. If you win the World Series, I think that really means that hell is officially frozen over. So, congrats to you, buddy. So, no, it's like I said, it's joking aside, it's unfortunate to see him having a rough season this time around. It's not a bad team by no means. I do like it, and I did talk to him a lot before the season started for lineup strategy and whatnot. But I think one issue, and I think he would tell you the same thing. He made a trade to get for I think he traded Richie Sexson for I think Heather Quinn, and me and Vis were telling him that Terry Vega is available in the free agents. You need another power bat. Take him. You've used him before. He's not a great player, but he would benefit your team. But I think he kind of regrets not taking him.
You've never really played with Terry Vega before, so I don't know if that would have helped or not, but definitely is possible.
Yeah, Terry and Perry have the same offensive stats, Nate. That the only difference is that unlike Perry, who can actually pitch and has a good stamina and has a good arm, well, a respectable arm, Terry can't pitch, he can't throw, and his only redeeming quality is his coordination stat. So that being said, though, 88 power is 88 power.
That is definitely true, for sure. Next game was the Marlins putting up only one run, and the Athletics taking this one for plus 12. I thought the this one would be a little bit closer than it was. I don't know what happened from Shrewsbury, considering that put up a plus 14 the week before and was seeming to kind of get on track, and then I don't know what happened with this one.
Yeah, I watched Arco stream, and he actually played pretty well. I think he gave up a couple runs to the AI, but he had some nice hitting. I don't recall who exactly did what in terms of the offense, but I just know that he played pretty well and probably didn't score as many as he wanted to. As far as Shrewsbury, I'm pretty sure that Shrews said that I think he grounded into like three double plays, and it led to like a lot of AI runs being scored off of power ups. So very frustrating game. It seems like from his end, kind of an unfortunate loss because, like you said, I definitely agree that this one should have been a lot closer.
Yeah, looking at the stats for the Athletics, there wasn't really any one person that kind of stood out. Kind of really even distribution. The most RBIs by any one player was Vlad with four, had two doubles and a triple. That would probably be the premier offensive player for this game. I do remember because I was watching that stream, and Peggy was giving Arco all that he could handle. I think Peggy hit two home runs and then had a triple off of a power up for the third one. So we gave up like 3 or 4 runs, and it was
Yep.
all because of Peggy. So I was joking around that Peggy was showing off to me when I was watching.
Hey, I mean, 98 power, she's always a fearsome player to face at the plate. I think that's why it's important to at least have a good two to three power hitters at minimum on any team you uh, build through the draft in this league because getting a little insurance from the AI doesn't hurt. Yeah, it again, Arco I think played pretty well. Gave up some runs like you mentioned to Peggy, but it was a fun stream to watch. Just unfortunate that Shrews had a very rough game on his end. So tough season for him, but Arco is looking pretty good for now, standing wise.
Yeah, Arco is tied with the Twins for the wild card spot at this point, so be a really interesting rest of the season to see if one of those two teams can possibly take the wild card spot, or a few other teams that are right beyond their tails. The last game of the week was the Diamondbacks and the Giants. Pepsi Boy for plus 18 to the Giants plus 12. I did think that the Giants were going to take this one since they revamped their team specifically for the stadium, but Pepsi Boy surprised me and pulled off the win.
Yeah, Pepsi Boy really clutch win here against the Giants on a field where I feel like his AI doesn't benefit him as much with some of the weaker arm players. There are some fast people on there, but very nice scoring 18 against a pretty good defense by the Itanium built mainly through trading at the end. Pepsi needed this win. He got blown out by the Twins prior week. So a very nice victory. But I'll say this, the Giants are still in really good shape to win their division despite the loss.
Yeah, for sure. I like to joke around that Pepsi Boy's defense is Henri, and that's it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, probably wouldn't be too far off because, like I said, there are some fast people. I think he has Adam Van Doren, he has Star, but there are some slower people, and the problem is just all the weak arms. And I think he has Conine at third and Linda at first when they should be flipped around. So Pepsi, if you ever draft Conine, again, don't put him at third base.
No, put him at first base for sure. I had both conines last season, so I consider myself a little bit of a conine expert on the matter. I got my master's degree in conines last season, so
Masters in Conine and doctorate in Heffernan.
yeah, for sure.
I got my doctorate in Dobbs, so I'm with you on that.
So that ends the week of week 10. Do you want to go into what the standings are first, or do you want to go into predictions first?
I know we kind of touched on the standings already, so I am definitely game for predictions.
Okay, let's get into predictions. So, which league do you want to start with?
We can do left to right again if that works for you.
Sure. So first game is the Pirates at the Royals.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another one of those instances where just this is team at Parks. Doesn't matter how good your defense is, this is going to win. It's by far the best team drafted for its home field this season, and it's no shot against Question Monkey. I think Question Monkey does have a lot of good power hitters, so definitely run up the score. Again, this is team this year is like Oops's Melonheads at TCA last season. It's just too good, and it's the right fit for the right field. And I think the Royals are going to continue their winning ways.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only shot the Pirates have of winning is if they score 30
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
or something. It's they're going to have to score 25 to 30
Well, I for
points.
for Question Monkey's sake, I hope he scores more than 25 because that seems to be a cursed total playing against the Royals there. Because I put up a plus 25 and I still lost by over 20. So
Well, maybe 26 will be the
yeah,
lucky
there you
number
go.
then.
He needs 26. 26.
Next game is the Hornets and the Angels. Another game at Parks. This game, two coaches that have been kind of struggling at different points throughout the season. So it'll be interesting to see which one can get a good game going. And I think possibly this is going to be whoever can get to 8 runs will win it.
Yeah, and it's no disrespect to Bobby, but I actually have this marked as an upset win for the Hornets. Hornets actually, I think, are built a little better for Parks. You have Julie Dunkel, you have Fred, you have Raphael Hendricks. I mean, you have even Libby Futterman, the Piazza clone, and even Randolph Glukert has 75 power, I think. So despite its slow team, which is what Bobby needs to take advantage of, he needs to go grounder with certain people, I think. This could very well be an upset, though. And I know Bobby's played through the rest of his games, and I know he told me that there was a couple that just his luck was really horrible. So I don't know if this is one of those games, but Schlim could definitely get the bats going against that team. And all you need to do is just hit it over the fence, which is pretty easy to do at Parks. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Schlim actually just barely edges him out.
Well, last time when Slim took over for those couple games for me against the Angels, he just put up like 25 points and that was also at Park. So he played against this defense already at once earlier this season. So I get where you're coming from with it. So I definitely could see both teams winning. Definitely, probably. I think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot closer, I think, than we expect. And again, I think that Hornets team is a little bit better on Parks with all its power bats than when I played against them on concrete.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to hit homers at concrete.
Yeah, and it's especially bad when like you have an entire side of the field that's full of slow kids. So I was able to take advantage of that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wish the best for Bobby, but Schlim could definitely put up 10, 15 runs. Like I said, there's a lot of power on that team.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to your game against the Rockies. What do you think about this one? You think the Rockies are going to pull the upset?
Uh, I mean, Martian, man, to his credit, has actually been playing a lot better this season, and I'm very happy for him because he had a very difficult draft and made some difficult trades that resulted in a 0-14 team last season. But he's got a few wins so far. I would like to see him get some more wins before it's over. Personally, I actually did play my game already, and I think I did pretty well. It went pretty well overall, and I think that I feel confident that my Cubs are going to get the W.
Yeah, so I would predict you to win. If it was at the game at TCA, I think it was really close, wasn't it?
I only scored plus 14, and honestly, like most of those were in like one inning. I couldn't get anything going after like one inning of play, and the rest of my runs were kind of scattered. But I think he only put up like a +3 against me, which I was a little surprised at. But I think as time has gone on, he's gotten a little better with his team. But I think my team is going to hold up. Plus the home multiplier is going to come into play here on my side this time around. But for Martian Man, I've talked with him a lot on here, and he's a really cool guy. So I hope he gets a nice performance either way.
Yes, I would take the Cubs to win this one. Not just because you're here, but I think you're the better player and have the better roster. Moving on to the next game, Devil Rays against the Bombers. This one I think is going to be really interesting to see just how many runs can the Devil Rays score because they have a lot of speed. It's at dirt yards. The Bombers are slow. You're going to have those bounces, so
Yeah, man. I mean, granted they have a faster outfield, but lots of weak arms and just, the infield is not that great either. I mean, if ASNAP was still with us in the league, I think that this is like a 50 just easily. I think Jibbo's still going to put up a bunch though, but this is one of those games that, we already know who's going to win, and there's no doubt about it. So Devil Rays will take it easily.
yeah, this is just how many runs will the Devil Rays score? That's the only real question about this one.
Indeed.
Now, the next game, or the next two games, have lots of questions associated with them. You got the T-Boz's Rangers, who we just watched play on Match of the Week, and the Reds of JY Knight.
Yeah, I have this as a toss-up, honestly. I think that JY's team is a little bit better built for Deal and Baz's, but it's not all that, not all by that much. And considering JY's struggles with scoring in recent weeks, this is an important one because JY needs to keep up pace with you for the division lead, and T-Boz needs to win to get ahead of Mav again in his division. So I would give the slight edge to JY just because he's playing at home and the home multiplier might come into play here. So, but either coach could win. It's kind of 50-50 in my opinion.
Yeah, this game is kind of tough. I think the Reds take this one because they have a better team built for steel than the Rangers do. Reds have Lofton, they have Xena, they have Joella, they have Mandy Coolidge, the Matessa Sturges of '01. So they have the power bats to do well at steel, unlike the Rangers do, other than Marcellus is really their one power bat that they have.
Marcellus and Maya too.
But yeah, that is true. I forgot about Maya.
Yeah, the funny thing is that because T-Boz has Dawn, who in '01 is the Kenny Lofton clone. So get Kenny versus Kenny in this one.
I didn't notice that in the game he was batting power with Lofton, which I thought was a little questionable considering that Lofton is one of the fastest players.
Yeah, I mean, he has home run power, but I mean, I don't really think when you have Kenny Lofton on your team, no matter where you're playing, I'm either going grounder or line drive pretty much every time because I just want to get him on base.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, especially when you have like the Loftons and the Ichiros, because they're kind of similar players to some extent. I think you got to go grounder a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I try to do with some of the people on my team as well, like with Pete or Jordan. So, and it tends to work pretty well for the most part.
Yeah, I think the Reds are going to take this one. I think it's going to be like 15 to 8 or something along those lines.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, I personally like, I think JY's defense is a little bit better, and I think he is benefiting from the home multiplier. So I would give the edge to JY, but again, it's definitely a toss up.
Yeah, really good matchup, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. JY usually plays pretty early in the week, and the Rangers usually play pretty late in the week, so might have to wait a little bit of time before we get the result on this one. But moving on to the last game of the American League, the Braves and the Orioles. This one, I think this is another toss-up game, especially considering you never know how many points Mav is gonna score, like we've mentioned previously. He's scored 50 and he's scored like 3 during the season, so it's like which Orioles are gonna show up. So I would like to say that since I'm a little bit more consistent than Mav has been this season, that I have the slight edge, but I could see it going either way. It really just depends on what Mav does.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mav has a bit of a speed advantage against you, and that may or may not play a role in depending on how many people he can get on base. But at the same time, you have, the best catcher in the game in Cheryl. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really think that you have to put up a good 12 to 15 runs to get the win. Again, maybe, we've seen your defense hold up quite well in weeks prior, though. So who knows? Maybe it'll hold up well against Bab's team. But this is one of those that could be decided again by like how our game went, 2 to 3 runs. So, and obviously very important for both of you to win.
Very important ramifications for this week, both for the wild card and for the division.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fireworks, I think, with this game, yeah, along with the previous game we mentioned too. So,
Yeah, I think both of those two games are the highlights of the American League this week for sure.
yeah, yeah, it's good because we could have potentially new division leaders, depending on the results.
Moving on to the National League, we got the Giants and the Cardinals, both teams coming off of tough losses in Week 10. So this could be another toss up too.
Yeah, I have this as a toss up in my notes again because, and this was actually this game when Crazy put up the predictors for this week. I didn't make my prediction for that game until a couple hours ago because I really didn't. I just didn't know who to take. I would say that Wiz has maybe a slight advantage playing at home, but Titanium, more than capable player. He usually puts up a pretty good run total almost every week. So playing on Casa is not exactly fun for anybody, but Wiz being the home team, I'm probably going to give him a slight edge here, but it could really go either way.
Yeah, for sure. Because the Giants seem to have like more speed, which you think would be beneficial, but they don't really have the home run threat that you kind of need at these slower stadiums. So
Yeah, it's one thing to have speed, but you also need someone that can actually just bring them all in at any given notice. And I'm trying to think. I don't think the Giants have a lot of power. I know they have Perry Marks and can't recall who else they have for power, but it's not a bad team at all. And it's again,
Well, they have Kendall, they have Floyd, they have Ichiro,
okay.
so it's a lot of speed.
Yeah, so I mean, oh yeah, because I think Wizard has Maryland at short now, if I remember correctly.
They have Jeter, and then they have Sammy behind the plate. So that's a tough shortstop catcher combination for defense to go against.
Yeah, so I mean that in itself could be problematic for Itanium. So I gave the my pick is with the Cardinals. I feel a little more confident that they're going to win that game than some of the other matchups we just talked about that are very dicey.
Yeah, I think if I get my prediction, I would lean towards the Cardinals, but it's going to ultimately come down to can the Cardinals hit home runs and can the Giants exploit Jerry going to first base?
Yeah, that's a big thing because you know, Jerry again, I mean, I don't think he's a great player, but he is a serviceable AI pitcher and has some good power. But I think him going to first base is just the worst thing imaginable for Wizards defense. So I think that that might be a lesson learned for the whole league going forward.
For sure. Next, we got the Melonheads going to TCA to face the Brewers and Silver Bullet. I think the Melonheads are gonna take this one. TCA is Oops' happy place, and I think the Melonheads are gonna get pretty happy this week.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. And we saw just like last season and in seasons past, PCA is where Oops goes to shine. And despite a lot of power for the Brewers, I think that Oops, as a faster team, can get other people on base and can just kind of wear out the defense too, along with scoring some runs and getting some trailer shots with Lindsey Felgate.
For sure. Maybe Fabian hits a couple home runs too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to bet against Oops on TCA, whether he's playing at home or on the road.
Yeah, I think that if Oops was playing at TCA and I just had to say, okay, do you think he's going to win? And I didn't know who the opponent was, I would probably take Oops to win like 95% of the time.
Yeah, I would probably do the same because I don't think I'd want to play against him there either.
Yeah, he's just really good at that stadium. Yeah, I think that it's going to be another tough loss for the Brewers, sadly. Though Silver has been one of the most improved players this season. I will have to say that.
Yeah, him and Martian Man for sure deserve some props for getting some wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Silver Bullet's been a real trooper with the terrible luck he's had in this league, but still sticking around and he always enjoys presence on the server. So
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most enjoyable people to talk with and brings a lot of energy to the community. Love having him around. Wouldn't be the same without him.
absolutely.
Next game we got, which is match of the week, Diamondbacks and the Fishes. I think the Diamondbacks are going to take this one. I know that's at Ekman and the Fishes home field, but Pepsi's just been really good, and I think that continues.
Yeah, Pepsi beat the Yankees at Dubois, which is essentially a very similar field. And I think that this is going to be no different. I don't exactly think the Fish's defense is the best either. It comes down to power. And I think Pepsi's team also does a little better in grassy fields. So not as bouncy, not too many weird things happen there. So Pepsi and his power with Henri, the Cons, and Lance Lambert, I think that's going to be enough to beat Chris.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, the next game, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this one goes. You got the Athletics that are fighting for a wild card spot, and you got the the Yankees that are just a game behind the Athletics in the division too. So playoff implications here. Yankees fighting for their playoff lives and Athletics trying to hold on to that spot.
Yep. I will say this, Arco streamed his game late last night. I'll refrain from talking about how well it went, but I think the veteran and Crazy is going to allow him to win. It might be a bit of a tough loss for Arco's Athletics, just my opinion, but I'm going to favor Crazy to win at home.
Yeah, I think that the fact that Crazy is now no longer live streaming his games is going to be the difference in this game, and nothing else. It's because if Crazy streams, then he's going to lose. If he doesn't stream, he's going to win. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, pretty much, and Crazy knows this too. I personally think that Crazy is going to take this one.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are going to take this one as well. Now, the other team that is currently tied for the wild card, the Twins and Toast, are going to Shrewsbury and the Marlins. So this could be another offensive game, but both teams struggled offensively this week, so we could see a pitcher's duel, even though we could possibly expect some offense on paper.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about another game taking place at Parks. Toast has a probably the slowest team in the league, honestly, but I don't think it's going to matter all that much at Parks. While Shrewsbury's put up some okay scores, they're not always consistent, and even his games at Parks have been relatively low scoring this year. So while he's doing really well with Clanky for the user pitching, I like Toast and his team of power bats versus the Marlins, who are kind of I would say a bit of a hybrid team for a Parks field.
Yeah, I think the Twins take this one, but ultimately, it's just hard to tell of how inconsistent both teams have been throughout the season. So, but if I had to pick, the Twins have been doing a little bit better, and their record shows. So, take the Twins in this one. The last game of the week is the Wombats going to the Monsters. Now, you did mention when you were talking about the Wombats that their team is more beneficial for a cement field. So, will that possibly be enough to pull off the upset?
Ah, it's just Monsters right now. Granted, they are not scoring a ton of runs each week. The NL in general is not scoring as much, but I think that was to be expected given the version differences, the way the teams are set up. It's hard to bet on teams that seem to just squeak wins out even when they're not even favored to do so. And, I don't know. It's certainly going to be an interesting matchup. Honestly, I think it could be both teams could score in the single digits this week.
You know what? I'm gonna pick the Wombats to win this one for the Blue Bats. They both have bat in their name, so I think for the sake of that, I'm gonna pick the Wombats to win this in an upset.
I mean, I'm still going with Urias Monsters, but I can honestly see this being a pretty close game. Marco's defense, I think, on concrete looks a lot better. I think it'll be interesting to see basically who can crack each other's defense. I think Hoops put up a pretty good performance against the Monsters earlier this season. It was still a loss, but it kind of showed that you can poke holes in that defense even on cement. So this might be a lot closer than expected, and who knows? We very well might see an upset.
Yeah, who knows? That would be definitely interesting. The Wombats did beat the Yankees earlier this season. That I think it was JBA predicted that one. So maybe the Wombats are the upset team of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marco's team does a little bit better on concrete, and I don't think the scores are going to be very high by either side in this match. I could be very wrong, but I'm still going to go with the Monsters, though. I think Uri had a pretty sickening draft and just built a really effective team. for where they play. Say what you want, but Brett Olson at second base on concrete is really good.
Wait, did you just say something good about Brett Olson?
I did, you know.
Well, good thing I got this on recording, so then I can play it back to you every time you talk smack about Brett Olson.
Hey, I'll give credit where credit's due. I don't like Brett Olson in most ways, but second base, a fast second baseman at a place that's the most bounciest is seems like the best strategy. I just look at my own self. I have Dominic at second base, so
Yeah, that is the games for week 11. I know we briefly touched on kind of the playoff seedings as they currently are right now. It's kind of hard to say what exactly is going to happen, but definitely a lot of teams in the playoff hunt in both the American and National League. So a lot of exciting games, and we'll have to keep our eyes glued to the Twitch streams and the Discord streams to see how the rest of the season prevails and unfolds.
yeah, absolutely. I think we're really go. I think there's a lot more parity in the league this season than in seasons before, and it's nice to see everybody picking up wins. Not too many clear-cut playoff teams, I think, other than I would say about four at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens in the this final stretch of the season, Nate.
Yeah, we really only have two divisions that are pretty like straightforward as who's going to win them. Actually, three. Three out of the six divisions are straightforward, but that's half of them that aren't, that are still up for grabs. That it's not certain who's going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, what happens down the stretch. Who can get some momentum and just go with it. I think one nice thing about this season too is that all our players are with the modded B file now with no nerfs to our players. Having a team at full strength every week is really nice. So I think, it makes for a lot more competitive games. We'll see what happens for sure.
Yeah, not having to have the disaster of having your best players nerfed in key stats is really nice going in week to week.
Yeah, yeah, that always helps, and it keeps the competitiveness, at a good place for these games.
So I think that pretty much sums up the week 10 and recap and week 11 predictions. One last thing I want to bring up before we leave. I know you've been watching some of the baseball playoffs, so what are you kind of been your thoughts on what's been going on so far?
Yeah, a lot of really crazy upsets and wins. I felt bad for the Mariners with that 18 inning loss, especially being 1-0. That was tough. I was kind of hoping they would pull it off or at least get a victory because of the just unluckiness of the franchise itself in their postseason. But seeing the Cardinals get knocked off right away is a great thing for any Cubs fan, Brewers fan, or Pirates fan in particular. And I think you would agree with me on that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've just it's been interesting to watch some of the big seeds go down. Seeing the Braves get beat. We're gonna have a new World Series champion. I'm thinking whoever comes out of the NL is who I'm going to cheer for. Because if it winds up being like the Yankees and Astros for the AL, and then those teams have already won it, numerous times. I'm kind of going with the Padres in some ways because they haven't won a World Series. That's kind of my take with sports in general. I'd like to see teams that haven't won it before just go all the way and get that championship gold.
Yeah, the rest of the teams are kind of like painful to like pick one as a Brewers fan because I don't really like the Yankees. The Astros kind of, I liked the Astros before they had all that cheating scandal and the Giuseppe kind of memes and stuff with the trash cans.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire over there for sure.
It's like a Seppi fire.
Yeah, and that's not who you want, to be associated with, period.
I mean, you want to be associated with Ivan King.
Yeah, I had a feeling you're gonna say. I had a feeling you were gonna say that. So yeah, Ivan King represents a champion and a king. So yeah, go with King.
You think I was going to get through this entire thing and not mention Ivan at least
No,
one time?
I mean it's kind of to be expected, so it's all good. We got to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the 100 slow ball.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I think if I had to pick, I would pick the Padres. Hater deserves a ring
Yeah, and again, I just
after how the Brewers just threw him away for nothing
yeah,
practically.
something that I'm sure that they are kicking themselves for, but I know how it is to dismantle your team, being a Cubs fan, seeing Rizzo and Baez and Bryant and Contreras is probably gone now too. So it's tough. But, like I said, my attitude with sports now is just whoever, anybody that's, hasn't won it or has had, limited success is who I'm gonna go with. So for me, it's probably San Diego.
Yeah, if I had to pick one team right now, it'd probably be San Diego. As much as it pains me to watch that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But I think with that, that's gonna end this episode. Thanks for coming on, Emery, and thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you guys in future episodes.
Thanks, Nate.